Hey guys, it's Glenda, and in this video I'm going to talk about how I, as a professional violinist, get ready for the winter. So I hope it gives you some ideas or tips if you also play violin on how you can have a happy and healthy and productive winter. So I kind of broke down this list into 3 categories. So there's supplies that you might need, things to do, and then self-care. So the first thing that I always check for in the supplies category is if I have enough tea. Tea is just something I drink throughout the fall and winter, okay, all year. Um, but it especially helps me out in the winter and the fall as things cool down. It's just sort of how I have to get motivated to practice. So if I make myself a cup of tea, then I'm ready to go. I'm all warmed up and I have more motivation to practice. And my favorite tea for fall and then early winter is chai. I like the masala chai from Arbor Teas, so I'll put the link for their website below. They are fantastic. I believe they're out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Anyway, so that's the first thing is tea. I make sure I've got plenty of that for the winter. Speaking of, I'm drinking out of my purple cup. I know it's a travel cup, but I miss using it. I take this with me to the studio almost every day, every other day, and it has tea in it. So I just really like using it. I miss it since I'm teaching from home currently because of the pandemic. Alright, the next thing that I make sure is up to snuff is my Noteflight subscription. I have this on auto renew, but I just wanted to mention it to you in case you're looking for something. Noteflight is an online music editing, composition, what do I want to say? Well, basically you can write out sheet music with it. If you're a professional musician, you just don't usually hand someone handwritten manuscripts anymore, so you always have it notated. And the winter's a good time to sit down and put in anything that you've written out by hand, do any kind of arranging if you're kind of bound inside because of the weather. So if you have never heard of Noteflight, you might want to check that out. Something else that you want to have on hand is some chalk, like regular chalkboard chalk, school chalk, peg drops or peg compound if you have traditional friction pegs, because in the winter we have a lot of peg slipping due to the changes in temperature and how that affects the wood of your peg box. So if you have that on hand, you can kind of fix the slipping easily and quickly instead of having to order things, wait for them to come in, and then fix it. So you can fix it right away and then get back to practicing. New strings. I change my strings usually every 3 months, every 6 weeks to 3 months, depending on how much I'm playing. So naturally, at the beginning of each season is a time that I would change my strings. I was a little late in changing my strings in the fall. I had ordered my strings before September and meant to change them in September, but I just didn't get around to it, and I haven't been playing as much because of the pandemic situation as I normally do. So I waited until November to change them so they would be broken in for all of the Christmas recordings that I'm currently working on right now. So changing your strings is a good thing to do to get ready for the upcoming season. And with that in mind, changing strings before the weather starts to change a lot is helpful because you get them on there, you get them broken in, and naturally it takes some time for them to settle into their tuning when you have ideal weather, but when the weather starts to change it gets even harder. It's just another factor that makes it hard to keep things in tune. So I like to put them on, have them set before the weather really starts to wreak havoc. Batteries. During the holiday season, you can usually find some pretty good sales and deals on batteries. So you can buy a pack of batteries. You can go like the bulk route and get a pretty good deal on batteries that will last you throughout the season. So take care of that because you'll need them for like your tuner if you have a separate good quality tuner. So there are a lot of apps out now for tuning, and I think for the most part, some of them are okay. The only one that I've ever come across that actually works well is the Total Energy Tuner. I can link that down below. But I wonder if some devices, just the microphones on them aren't adequate enough to pick up the sound of your instrument. I don't know, but from my experience, when those are used, they don't really work or they'll tell you that you're playing a different note than you are. It just doesn't work very well. So, but the point is that in the winter you will have a lot more tuning to do than you normally do. So it would be a really good idea to have a nice tuner, a good quality one that can read accurately and tell you where you are accurately, so you can tune quickly and not spend half of your day tuning. What is I think the brand that I like is called Click, so I will link that down below as well. A tuner that is also a mattress. It goes without saying that the tuner needs batteries. So again, buy lots of batteries. Magazine subscription. So I like the Strad magazine and the Strings magazine. I find them very motivating. And it can help to have a source of motivation in the winter. I think a lot of us kind of slow down in the winter. We just don't feel like doing as much, or our goals feel so far away and it's just hard to get there. So it helps to have some sort of motivation. And for myself personally, an issue or a subscription of Strings or the Strad magazine are very helpful. They kind of keep you up to date on what's happening in the string playing world. Manuscript paper. So now we're going to get into the supplies that you kind of need year-round, and if you didn't take care of it at the beginning of fall, now is a good time to take care of it. So manuscript paper, you might want to have that on hand for practice, if you're writing on any exercises, if you're working on ear training, dictation, music theory, composing, whatever. I'll link the manuscript paper that I like. Make sure you have a good supply of pencils, and I like colored pencils for my physical copies of sheet music for practicing or analyzing stuff. I like the erasable kind because, you know, if you're borrowing sheet music from someone, you can easily take it out, or if you change your mind, you can take out the colors. Charging cables. So again, there are a lot of really good deals right now for pretty much everything. So if you need something new, like a new charging cable for your iPad, if you're doing a lot of recording, or really anything that needs a charging cable, and now's a good time to take care of it, because there's nothing worse than getting all set up in practice. You finally have the motivation to get your instrument ready to go in the winter. You mean to practice with your iPad because the tuner is on there or whatever, and then you go to turn it on and it's dead. Or just, you know, everybody's using their devices a lot more right now. So I think our cables are getting a good workout. The best iPad or iPhone lightning cable that I've ever came across is actually the one from Amazon Basics. So I'll link that one down below. I had it for a long time and it hasn't broken yet. Knock on wood. Headphones. Those are essential if you're recording or doing any sort of music editing, and then just listening. So most music is mixed and meant to be played through high quality speakers, and I don't think the majority of people have high quality speakers anymore. Your iPhone, I guess, unless it's the newest one. Even my iPad Pro has really good speakers, but it's still not as good as a high quality pair of studio headphones. So as a musician, as a professional musician, it's necessary to have those. Bluetooth speaker that can be helpful when you're practicing if you want to play along to a recording. It's a little bit easier to hear yourself and what's going on in the recorder if you play it through a Bluetooth speaker. And then a new calendar, agenda, or notebook if you use that as a planning tool. Now's a good time to pick one up for the incoming year. I use a digital calendar. I like the fact that it reminds you instead of, so I no longer really write things down on a calendar so much. I mean, for planning, I will write things out on a paper calendar, but when it's set and done, I like to put it in the digital calendar so I have reminders. But yeah, if you have a practice notebook or you want a calendar for any reason, agenda, then now's a good time to pick one of those up. If you didn't take care of it at the beginning of fall, now's a good time to have your bow rehaired. Students need to have their bows rehaired at least every 6 months, 1 to 2 times a year. That should be sufficient for students. But advancing players need it more often, at least 4 times a year, at least every 3 months. And professionals usually have their bows rehaired somewhere between, again, 6 weeks and 3 months. More, less, depending on how often you play. There's a sort of like a amount of time that bow hair usually stays fresh for. with the winter we get colder temperatures, drier temperatures, at least where I live. So that makes things sort of complicated and you have to prepare for that. And one thing that you can do is get a violin bag. It's a bag that you put your instrument in. In fact, if you buy a high quality case, a higher quality case, they usually come with a violin bag. They're usually made out of silk or satin. If you're looking for a animal-free, cruelty-free, vegan type, you have to go with the satin. Although I'm toying with the idea of making my own violin bag out of flannel, out of a fun tartan flannel for Christmas or something. So I'll think about that. But anyway, the point is to put it in the bag because it helps protect against any of the air that's coming in through your case. So the cases lock pretty well. If you have a high quality case, they seal well enough to keep things like rain out, but if you have a student quality case, sometimes rain and water can get in there. But anyway, the point is there's like a crack all the way around, or some places where the seal is not quite sealed. And so if the air gets in, then it will mess with the temperature of your violin and dry it out. So if you put it in a bag, it just gives another layer of defense against that dry, cold air. And for the outside, my feet are falling asleep, I gotta move. For the outside of your violin, you can get a coat, like type thing. I call it a coat, a case coat, to go on the outside of your case. It's made out of the same materials that you would find in the coat that you wear, just to give some more insulation to protect it from the cold and the temperature changes. Dark rosin. So I'm switching to dark rosin because it's winter. I'm going to make a separate video about rosins and which kind you need and when and how long they last and that sort of thing. But in the winter, I switched to a dark rosin. Case humidifier. So again, in the winter, because we turn the heat on, it gets dry. So you especially in the winter have to make sure that you have a humidifier for your case. If the wood gets too dry, it will crack. And then has to be repaired. So this is my case humidifier. I showed it in my getting ready for fall video. As you can see, I need to refill it again, but I like to show it to you guys when it's empty so you can see what the difference is. So when you fill it up with water, these like gel type crystal things expand and it ends up filling up the entire thing, and then the water kind of evaporates in my case over time and provides some humidification. So you need some way to keep your instrument humidified during the winter months, and that's how I do it with mine. You also need a hygrometer. You need some way to measure the level of humidity, and I have a digital hygrometer and a thermometer. Let's see, did I grab? Oh, okay, yeah. So I have one just outside in the room that I keep the instrument in, and then I have one in my case. In the winter, you should keep your instrument in its case because it's easier to keep it humidified. It's easier to control the temperature that way. Unless you have, you know, an enclosed room, like a small office or something that you're keeping your instrument in where you can kind of close the doors and regulate the temperature and humidity pretty well, it should stay in your case. And let me show you what I mean. This is the hygrometer, thermometer that I have just outside in the room. Okay, so you can see it says we are at 39% for the hydration, and the temperature is 70.1 degrees in here. Let me pull the one out that's in my violin case. The one in my violin case says 45% for the humidity and 69 degrees. Okay, so you see the difference. The one in my case actually shows that the environment in there is more suitable. My violin will like that one better. This. And as far as temperature and humidity levels that your instrument likes, for humidity you want to keep it somewhere between 40 and 60%, and then for temperature you want to stay between 60 and 78 degrees. So string instruments are really picky on the temperature and humidity for them to sound the best and operate the best and to stay in the best condition. So in short, if you're not comfortable, your instrument's not comfortable if you play a string instrument. Okay, so again, you can see the difference between my case, the humidity and temperature in my case, and then outside here in the room. So as you can see, this is 39%. It's right on the edge of being humid enough and dry. So we might have to break out the humidifier soon to keep the room humid for my violin when I take it out of its case when I'm practicing and playing and teaching. You may also want to set alarms or reminders in your calendar or on your device to remind you to check your humidifier every week and every month. Because I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I fill it up at the start of the season and I forget about it, or I just never go back and check it, and it's not good for my violin, especially because my violin is an old lady, over 300 years old. She needs to be well taken care of, so I need to pay attention more, and that's something that I'm going to start new this season, is set alarms and reminders for myself to check it every week, and again once a month at the end of the month, or maybe that'll be every week might be sufficient. I don't know. I'll let you guys know how it goes. If your hygrometer is battery powered like this is, you want to make sure you have fresh batteries for this as well. Then you put your violin in the case, and then you put the case somewhere, wherever you're storing it. You need to make sure that you're not putting it near a heat source or a window. It needs to be left in a place where the temperature and humidity stays consistent. So something else that you need to do at the beginning of winter, at least that I do, is I start to think about my goals for the next year. I don't set New Year's resolutions, but I try to think about big picture. What do I want to do in the next year, in 2021? And then I actually sit down and plan my goals for the winter. So for me, winter is December, January, and February. So what do I want to accomplish in that time? And I usually pick about 3 things. I think doing a smaller amount of time, like 3 months, is better. At least it's better for me, instead of trying to set goals for the entire year. That's another video I'll make. I promise I'll make it. I've been saying I'll make it, but I will make a practice journal video and show you my process. Don't leave your instrument in the car. I don't know any professionals that do that. Kids do that a lot, but it's not a good idea. One, it can get stolen. And the method of how it's stolen, you will have to pay for somehow, I guess, if your windows get broken or whatever. It might depend on the area that you live in, but you shouldn't risk it anywhere. 2, it's not good for the instrument. The cold weather, it's cold, it's dry, it will lead your instrument to crack. You cannot play with a cracked instrument. It doesn't sound good, it doesn't resonate, it will buzz. It's expensive to fix an instrument that is cracked. So be disciplined enough to bring your instrument in. And I guess this winter it doesn't really matter, because nobody should be going anywhere anyway with the pandemic. We should all be staying at home, so I don't know why your instrument would even be in the car in the first place. So this is a good time of year to have your violin have a checkup. So think of it as sort of like your yearly physical for your violin. Make sure you take it to your luthier in the winter and the summer to get a good once over and make sure there's nothing going on that needs to be fixed. After the winter, usually we find open seams from the wood expanding and contracting so much that you need to get fixed. But if you go into winter making sure everything's nice and sealed properly, you can avoid major issues throughout the winter months. So it's a good time to have things looked over and see if you need any work done. Also, most players are not playing so much after the holidays, so January is pretty much a dead month. So that's a good time to have your instrument in the shop. Pencils, sharpen them. I mean, you can sharpen them as you go, but I like to start out every semester, every quarter, with pencils that are freshly sharpened. It might be a teacher thing. If you have any sheet music, you need to return it. This is for normal times, obviously, because all the sheet music that you're getting, if you're playing in some group, it's probably in a digital format right now, because people are not getting together to play, or you should not be getting together to play right now. So you probably don't have any orchestra music to return. But if you do, for some reason, please return it. Drop it in the mail. You are working with someone independently and you're trying to do like a virtual digital mashup, and they sent you sheet music to borrow. They sent you a physical copy, put it in the mail and send it back to them. Please always return your sheet music. After the holidays, if you've played holiday music, put your holiday music away. You're not going to use it again for another year, so make sure you're nice and organized, store it away. And that brings me to another point with sheet music and the winter. Winter is a great time to organize things since we're kind of stuck inside even more than we normally are right now. So it's a great time to go through your music library and organize everything. You can put all of your holiday music into one category. I like those magazine holders for my loose sheet music, things that are not in books. And you can have one just that says holiday and you can put it in there. You can also get a filing cabinet for your sheet music. You can also go through the process of digitizing your sheet music. I use Fourscore to house all of my digital sheet music, so you should check that out if you don't know what that is. But winter is a great time to get organized. This more or less applies to regular times. By regular times, I mean non-pandemic times. In the winter, you need to reorganize your schedule to allow for extra time before rehearsals and lessons and practice to just simply tune. It's going to take longer. The instruments are going to be more out of tune, so you need to allot for that. It can take minutes, like 5 minutes or more to tune if you're really, really out of tune, especially for students. It could take half of your lesson to get yourself in tune. So make sure that you allow for extra time. So if you need to have a later lesson time, you might need to leave earlier before you go to rehearsal in normal times, right? So now it still applies. If you're having a Zoom lesson, make sure you get your instrument out a few minutes early and tune so that you're in tune by the time the lesson starts, that sort of thing. And then also in the winter, when we get back to normal times, you need the extra time, one, for weather, because unless there is a serious blizzard, the show goes on, so you still will have rehearsal or you will still have the performance. So you need to plan for extra time just to get there so you're not late, and then tune. And then you also need to have time for your instrument to acclimate to the weather, to the conditions. So going from outside being really cold, or from inside your car with the heat on where it's really hot and dry, and then going outside into the cold, and then into the building, and then in the building it might be a little bit cooler than on the stage. So you need to make sure you've got plenty of time. So the general rule of thumb is before performance an hour. Make sure you're there an hour early to warm up. Make sure your instrument acclimates to the environment, to tune, to make sure that you're not running late, or if you forget something, you have some time, some wiggle room to figure it out. Okay, so leave extra time for that, for both online things and then when we return to the normal time. Okay, so the last category is self-care. Stay hydrated. It's important, right? I always say this: your most important and first instrument is you. Your instrument doesn't play itself, you play your instrument. So if you're not in good working order, it's not going to happen. You're not going to play, you're not going to win a practice. You'll have injuries, so the instrument's not going to get played. So take care of yourself first. So you need to stay hydrated in the winter. Make sure you're eating well and you're sleeping, and take time to rest. Winter is a time of year that we should be resting. We should be taking care of ourselves. So you're probably not going to get as much done in the winter as you normally would the rest of the year, and that's fine. Just make your peace with it, okay? Make a little progress every day, but don't push yourself to the point that you're just exhausted. I just don't think it's supposed to be that way. I think we're supposed to take time off and rest in the winter. Motivation sources. So the little effort that you can put in and the time you can put in during the winter, we really need motivation sources to get there. At least for some people, winter is a very dark, difficult time of the year. So with no motivation sources, nothing gets taken care of, nothing gets done. So again, I like the magazines. You can watch YouTube videos. You can treat yourself to a new recording. That's another benefit of getting the magazine subscriptions, because they list new recordings that are coming out, so you're on top of it, and getting that new recording can be highly motivating. Buying yourself a fresh set of sheet music, a fresh book to work on a piece that you have never learned before, that you want to explore, or something that you already have, just a different version of that piece, like a different publisher of that piece. So your body doesn't work well if it's not warm. If you're trying to practice and play and your muscles are cold, you will have an injury at some point. So make sure that you're taking the time to warm up in a couple of different ways. So one, wear warm clothes. Okay, keep your body warm, because the warmer that you dress, if you dress appropriately for the season, then you don't have to keep the temperature as high, right? So if you're walking around in a crop top t-shirt and short shorts in the winter, of course you're going to have to crank up the heat, and that's not good for your instrument, right? Because the more heat that you have pumping throughout your house during the winter, the drier it's going to get. So dress appropriately so you can keep your temperature in that 60 to 78 range, and so that the humidity stays correct for your instrument. So dress warmly. It will keep your muscles warmer so that you don't have as many injuries and the environment more appropriate for your instrument. Stretch. You should be stretching before you practice all the time, regardless of what time of the year it is. But it's especially important in the winter, again, because we're colder, we're not moving as much, so our muscles aren't warmed up. So always stretch before you practice. And for me, my hands are the coldest part. So even if I have a lot of movement and activity so that I'm warmed up and stretched before I practice, sometimes my hands are still cold. So you need to get your hands nice and warm and flexible and pliable before you start playing to prevent injuries. So one way you can do that is just wash your hands before you practice with warm water. Don't use like super hot water. It dries out your skin, which will lead to other issues that I'm going to talk about. But use warm water. You can also use a hair dryer to warm up your hands, and gloves. Sometimes my hands are so cold in the winter that I wear fingerless gloves when I practice, like this. Okay, you can make them or you can get them. So the fingertips are out so I can still play and hold on to things, but it does help them stay nice and warm. So fingerless gloves for practicing, rehearsing, that sort of thing, if your hands are really, really cold and fighting against you. Speaking of gloves in general, when you go out, you always wear gloves. If you're a professional musician, always wear gloves. You have to keep your hands healthy and warm, okay? If your hands get too dry and then you start getting cracking, like at your fingernails, or as we get older, sometimes people their skin will actually split. So make sure you're wearing gloves every time you go outside to keep your hands from drying out. I have lotion, so this is really important too. This is the kind I'm currently using. I've been using this for a long time. It's the Norwegian formula, the Neutrogena hand cream. It's fragrance free. It works pretty well. I'm looking for alternatives that are a little more friendly all the way around, environmentally, for people, a little more healthy. I just haven't found anything that works. Most lotions actually aren't that moisturizing. They have things like alcohols in them that actually dry your hands out more, and lots of fragrance. So I don't like any of those things. So this works. It has less of the bad in it, but I haven't found any natural things that actually moisturize as well either. So if you know something, let me know. But this is what I use right now. I put it on every time after I wash my hands to protect them. But you won't have to do that as much if you're wearing your gloves. And speaking of gloves, make sure you have extra pairs everywhere, so there's no excuse for you not to be wearing them. So in your case, in your car, in your coats, by the door, everywhere. Okay. This year in particular for winter, I think people will be using hand sanitizer more, which really dries out your hands. And washing your hands with just soap and warm water is more effective for many things, many viruses, than hand sanitizer. So if you're at home, just wash your hands with soap and water instead of the hand sanitizer. It's going to dry you out more. You're going to have more problems with your fingers splitting and cracking than if you would just use soap and water. Okay, so soap and water. Get yourself, these are pretty cheap, so I have a few of them and I leave them all over the place. I have one in my case. I have one in my studio. Not that it's going to be like full by the time I get it back. One in my bedroom, one in the bathroom, one in the kitchen, a couple in my car, one, They're everywhere. So I just, for things that are really cheap, I just buy multiples of them and then leave them in places so I don't have to constantly carry them around. And I always have access to them, so I have no excuses. And then Band-Aids. So if you do have really dry hands and things are splitting and cracking, Band-Aids just don't work if you're a violinist. You cannot put Band-Aids on your fingertips and still play. So I use this new skin. It's a liquid bandage. So you just swipe it on. Over top it's an antiseptic and liquid bandage. So if you have a cut or if your finger cracks or you get some sort of like hangnail and it's looking really, really painful and it's just gross, then you can put on the new skin and you can play with this. And that's sort of the main point of taking care of your hands and not letting them get dried out, because you don't want to have to play with fingers that are sore from being split or that are like actually bleeding. You can cut your fingers on strings, so the more dry they are, the more likely that's going to happen. So you need to really take care of your hands, especially during the winter. So new skin is the way to go if you have any bandage type situations. I forgot to show you this. This is the Melos. I'm going to look up how to say this word correctly. Melos or Melos. It's my rosin. This is the dark rosin that I'll be switching to. As you can see, it's a fresh cake. I haven't started it yet. And I'll let you guys know how that goes. So there are a couple other things that I found that are sort of, or something I found and something that came to me that I just wanted to share with you because I think they're fun and festive. So the first thing is this mask. I got it off of Etsy. It's a nice little festive mask. It's a hand embroidered one. Guys, check this out. Isn't that cute? I also have one in red. Okay, so when you have to go out again, stay home. You should be staying home. There should be no reason why you're going out and about right now, you know, for just stuff that doesn't really matter. Grocery store, fine. But other than that, everybody should be staying home, okay? But so when you do have to go out to the grocery store, you can look so cute and festive. Okay, so I'll put the Etsy store below where I got that. And the other thing that came in the mail today for me was a necklace my sister got me. Look how cute this is. See, it's my name. But what I really, really love about it too is that the back, the hooks on the chain, allow you to wear all kinds of different ways. Like I have like more like a choker. See, check this out. Do you see how the rings come in like that? Alright, I think that's about it as far as getting ready for the winter. If I think of anything else that is helpful, I'll put links for things down in the description box. Again, this video is not sponsored. I bought everything with my own money, and so I wouldn't show it to you if I truly didn't like it or didn't think that it worked. Yeah, so if you have any questions or comments, if there's things that you do to get ready for winter that I didn't talk about, put them down in the comments below. Alright guys, I hope you have a wonderful winter. Stay warm, stay happy, stay healthy, and go practice. Bye guys.